Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're digging into a UN report that really caught my eye about credit ratings in Africa. Now, before you tune out thinking this is going to be a snooze fest about dry financial stuff, trust me, this is juicy. We're talking about huge sums of money here, the kind of money that can literally make or break a nation's future. And this report doesn't just throw around numbers. It dives into how those credit ratings actually play out in the real world. Because how African countries get the money they need to grow, well, it's not just about aid anymore.
That's right. It's a whole different ball game now. This report really highlights how much the landscape has shifted from that old model. We're talking foreign investment, remittances from abroad, all that. Basically, African nations are stepping onto the global stage more and more, and that means borrowing money in international markets.
And that's where these credit ratings come in, right?
Exactly. Think of it like, when you get your first credit card or need a loan for a car.
In there.
That interest rate they hit you with isn't just some random number. It's all based on how they see your financial trustworthiness, your credit score.
Right. Makes sense.
Now magnify that to the scale of a whole country trying to fund its development, build infrastructure, educate its people. That's what we're dealing with here. These credit ratings, they basically determine the interest rates countries have to pay on their debt.
So crazy high stakes. And we're not talking about some small potatoes here.
Oh, absolutely not. We're talking about the financial fate of entire nations resting in the hands of, get this, just 3 global credit rating agencies.
Wait, just 3? Seriously?
Yeah, you heard that right. 3.
Okay, so we've got these 3 agencies essentially holding the cards when it comes to how the world views these African economies.
It's a lot of power concentrated in a very small number of players.
And that's got to make you wonder, are they getting it right? So we've got these 3 agencies calling the shots. But are they actually making fair calls? I mean, is their system legit?
Well, that's the million-dollar question right there. And that's where this UN report gets really interesting. They didn't just analyze how credit ratings work, the mechanics of it all. They actually put these ratings to the test.
Okay, how'd they do that?
So they created this objective model purely based on data, no opinions or gut feelings involved. Think of it like a completely neutral mathematical assessment of a country's economic health.
Interesting.
And then they compared their objective ratings to the ones given out by the big 3 agencies.
And what'd they find?
Get this. There are some pretty major inconsistencies.
You mean countries were getting wildly different ratings depending on which agency was looking at them?
Exactly.
Even if those countries had similar economies?
You got it.
Hold on. So it's like you take your car to 3 different mechanics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same make and model, same mileage, the whole shebang. And they each give you a totally different diagnosis.
That's a great analogy. It's exactly like that. And we're not talking about small discrepancies here either. The report highlights cases where one country might get a stellar rating from one agency, like an A+, and then a junk rating from another.
Whoa, really? Okay, now I got to know. What could possibly explain that kind of discrepancy?
Yeah, what gives, right? Well, that's the heart of the matter, isn't it? The report uses this term idiosyncrasies to describe these deviations from the objective model.
Idiosyncrasies, huh? Sounds like a fancy way of saying things that just don't quite add up.
Yeah, kind of, right?
So are these just like harmless quirks in the system?
Yeah, or is there's something else going on here?
Because, I mean, we're talking about real consequences here.
Right.
Right. We're talking about the ability of these countries to access funds, to invest in their future.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to dig into next.
Yeah.
Because these inconsistencies, they have a real cost, a big one.
Okay, so let's talk about the cost of these idiosyncrasies. Because we're not just talking about, academic differences here, right?
Absolutely not. This is where it gets real. The report estimates that these credit rating inconsistencies, they're costing African nations billions of dollars.
Billions. Whoa, how many billions are we talking about?
Billions in extra interest payments each year.
Each year. Okay, that's a whole lot of zeros.
It is.
But I got to say, sometimes those huge numbers, they kind of lose their meaning,
Yeah.
Can you break it down for me? What does that actually look like on the ground?
Sure. So imagine the amount of money it would take for an African country to achieve universal primary education for all its kids.
Okay, got it.
Or the cost of building essential infrastructure, hospitals, roads, the things that power a nation's growth.
Huge investments for sure.
Now, the report found that the amount these countries are overpaying in interest, it's roughly equivalent to those essential investments.
You're kidding. So it's like not only are these nations already facing an uphill battle when it comes to development, But then they're getting slapped with these higher interest rates,
Yeah.
and it's all based on these potentially flawed
You
assessments.
got it. It's a lose-lose situation.
Yeah. This is really eye-opening stuff, and I appreciate you breaking it down. But this begs the question, what can we actually do about it? Is there any hope for fixing this system?
I'm glad you asked because, yes, there are solutions. And the report lays out several concrete recommendations.
Okay, let's hear them. What needs to change?
Well, for starters, we need way more transparency from these credit rating agencies. I'm talking about clear methodologies that everyone can understand, open to scrutiny, the whole 9 yards.
So no more black box ratings, huh? No more just like pulling numbers out of thin air.
Exactly.
Got to be accountable, especially when you talk about the futures of entire nations, right?
100%.
So more transparency. What else is on the table?
Well, the report also explores this intriguing idea. What about a Pan-African credit rating agency?
Now, that's interesting. Tell me more.
So imagine an agency that really truly understands the nuances of the African economic landscape, not looking at it through some kind of, distorted lens from afar, but an agency that's on the ground that gets the unique strengths and challenges of these economies.
Yeah, an agency that speaks the language, so to speak.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Anything else?
One more thing. The report also suggests we need to bring those environmental, social, and governance factors, those ESG factors, into the credit rating process.
Right, because a country's commitment to sustainability and social progress, that says a lot about its long-term economic health, doesn't it?
Precisely. It's about recognizing that a nation's creditworthiness.
Yeah.
It's not just about their GDP, right? It's about their commitment to a sustainable and equitable future for their people.
Well said. I gotta say, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener. Who knew that something as seemingly technical as credit ratings could have such a huge impact? But I think it really highlights how crucial it is to really look beyond the surface, to understand the systems and structures that shape our world, and most importantly, to keep asking those tough questions about fairness and equity, even, or maybe especially, when we're talking about something as complex as global finance. So if this deep dive piqued your interest, you can explore the full UN report. We've got a link for you in the show notes. And as always, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll catch you next time when we'll be unpacking another fascinating topic you won't want to miss. Until then, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.